Green Table Restaurant sat on a busy street, right between a bank and a phone shop. From outside, it looked warm and welcoming. Large windows showed clean tables, soft lights, and workers moving quickly. A bright sign promised fresh meals and fast service. At lunchtime, the place was always full. Inside, the noise of the lunch rush was steady. Chairs scraped, plates clinked, and people talked over each other. The smell of grilled chicken, spices, and baked bread floated through the air. In the kitchen, orders were shouted, timers beeped, and pans hissed as food hit hot oil. In the middle of all that movement was the manager, Mark. Mark had the kind of face that looked friendly at first. He smiled a lot, but his smile did not always reach his eyes. He kept his hair neat, his shirt pressed, and his watch shining. He liked walking through the dining area with a clipboard, like the restaurant was his stage and everyone else was just a part of the show. Mark believed he knew people quickly. He believed he could tell who mattered and who did not, just by looking. And that belief made him careless. At the front counter, a young cashier named Nora worked quickly. She tried to be polite to everyone. She said, "Please," and "Thank you," even when customers were rude. She had learned that staying calm kept problems small. Today, she was doing her best, but the line was long. Near the end of that line stood a man named David. David did not look flashy. He wore a dark jacket that fit well, plain jeans, and clean shoes. His hair was trimmed, and his face was calm. He carried no large bag, no loud phone, no big energy. He simply waited, watching the room the way someone watches a place they want to understand. He had ordered a simple meal, ate quietly, and now came to pay. When it was his turn, Nora gave him a small smile. "Hi. Your total is $22.50, she said. David nodded. "Sure." He pulled out cash, counted it carefully, and placed it on the counter. Nora counted it back, then opened the register. She looked at the screen again. "Your change is 50 cents, she said. She picked up 2 coins, set them neatly on the counter, and slid them toward him. It was a normal moment. A small moment. But Mark had been walking nearby. He saw David. He did not recognize him. He did not like that he did not recognize him. And for reasons he would never admit out loud, that made him want to feel in control. Mark stepped closer, leaning into the counter area as if he owned the air there. Nora's smile faded a little. She knew that look on Mark's face. It meant he was in one of his moods. David reached for the coins. Mark moved faster. He scooped the coins up and dropped them into the plastic tray where receipts were kept. The coins clattered loudly, like someone had tossed junk into a bin. Then Mark pushed the tray across the counter, not gently, and not with respect. The tray slid and stopped in front of David. "Take it," Mark said. "Or don't. We're busy." Nora's cheeks flushed. Her eyes darted to David, then to Mark. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she did not dare. Mark had a way of making workers feel small, even when he was wrong. A few customers nearby noticed. A man in a suit paused mid-sip. A woman holding a child looked over. The noise in the room stayed the same, but in that small space at the counter, it felt like time slowed. David stood still for a moment. He looked at the tray. He looked at Mark. His face stayed calm, but his eyes changed. Not with anger. More like disappointment, like someone seeing a crack in something that was supposed to be solid. He slowly picked up the tray, lifted the coins out carefully, and placed the tray back where it belonged. Then he put the coins in his palm, closed his hand, and looked directly at Mark. "Thank you," David said, voice even. Mark gave a short laugh, the kind that tried to sound confident. "People should be grateful," he said, turning his head as if this was a lesson he enjoyed teaching. David did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He simply nodded once and stepped away from the counter. Nora watched him go, her face tight with discomfort. She leaned slightly forward and said softly, so only David could hear, "I'm sorry about that." David turned back for a second and gave her a small, respectful nod. "It's okay," he said. But it was not really okay. David walked toward the door, but instead of leaving, he stopped near the window and looked around. There was a small table close to the glass, just big enough for one person. He sat down there, not hiding, not making a scene. Just sitting. From that seat, he could see almost everything. He watched how the servers moved between tables. He watched which tables got checked on quickly and which got ignored. He watched how Mark spoke to workers and how workers reacted. He noticed small details, like a napkin holder missing from one table, and a sticky spot on the floor near the soda machine that no one seemed to clean. He noticed the kitchen door swinging too wide, almost hitting a worker carrying a tray. Mark, meanwhile, kept moving like a storm in a nice suit. At one table, a family asked for extra sauce. Mark snapped at a server, "Why didn't you bring it the first time?" Even though it was a reasonable request. The server apologized and ran off. At another table, an older man asked about a meal because he had allergies. Mark walked over and answered quickly without really listening. David watched the older man's worried face. He watched the server step in to explain more carefully, quietly saving the moment. David's eyes stayed calm, but inside, he was taking notes. A young server named Liam came near the window carrying a tray with water glasses. Liam was new. That was easy to tell because his movements were careful, almost nervous. He tried not to bump into anyone. He tried not to spill. As Liam passed David's table, he noticed the coins sitting neatly beside David's phone. Something about that made Liam pause. He looked at David's face. He looked kind, but also serious, like he was thinking deeply. "Sir," Liam said quietly, "are you okay?" David looked up. "Yes," he answered. "I'm fine." Liam hesitated. He lowered his voice even more. "I saw what happened at the counter. That wasn't right." David studied Liam's face for a moment. Liam looked nervous, but honest. "Thank you," David said. Liam gave a small nod. Mark gets like that. He thinks the restaurant is his kingdom. David's eyes stayed on Liam. "And what do you think?" he asked. Liam swallowed. "I think a manager should protect the team, not scare them." David nodded slowly, like he agreed. "That's a good answer." Liam looked surprised, as if he did not expect David to ask questions. "I should get back," Liam said. "Lunch rush." "Of course," David replied. Liam walked away, but he kept glancing back once, like he was unsure who David was, but felt something important about him. David stayed seated, watching. Minutes passed. Customers finished meals and left. New customers came in. The line at the counter shrank, then grew again. Mark noticed David still sitting there. At first, Mark ignored him. Then Mark frowned. He did not like people who did not follow his unspoken rules. He especially did not like people who sat calmly after being treated poorly, because calmness made Mark feel less powerful. Mark walked toward David's table with fast steps. He stopped beside it, looking down like a judge. "You paid," Mark said. "So why are you still here?" David remained seated. He looked up, calm. "I'm taking a moment," he said. Mark's jaw tightened. "We don't let people sit around," he said. "This is a restaurant, not a lounge." David's voice stayed steady. "I'm not bothering anyone." Mark's eyes flicked to the window, then back to David. "You need to leave," he said, louder now, so nearby customers could hear. A few people turned their heads. Nora at the counter looked over, worried. Liam stopped near the kitchen door, tray in hand, watching with tense shoulders. David stood up slowly. Not rushed, not scared. He placed his phone in his pocket and held his receipt in his hand. "I can leave," David said. "But before I do, may I ask you something?" Mark blinked, surprised by the calm tone. "Ask what?" David looked around the room once, then back at Mark. "How long have you managed this place?" he asked. Mark's shoulders lifted slightly, like the question was a challenge. "Long enough," he said. "Why does it matter?" David nodded, as if he expected that answer. And how do you think your team feels working here? Mark laughed sharply. They get paid. That's how they feel. David's eyes did not change. Do you think that's enough? He asked. Mark's smile became thin. Listen, he said, lowering his voice, stepping closer. I don't know what your plan is, but don't try to act smart in my restaurant. David met his eyes. Your restaurant, he repeated quietly. Mark leaned in with a smug expression. That's right. David looked at Mark for a long second. Then he nodded once, like he had just confirmed something important. All right, David said. Mark's face showed victory, as if he believed he had won. David turned toward the exit. He walked to the door, pushed it open, and stepped outside. The bright daylight hit the glass, and the restaurant noise stayed inside. Mark watched him leave and gave a little shake of his head, as if David was just another problem that had been removed. But David did not walk away fast. He stood on the sidewalk, looking back through the window at the dining area. He watched Mark return to his clipboard. He watched Nora return to the register. He watched Liam carry his tray again, shoulders still tense. Then David reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen once, then twice, like he was checking something. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes were focused. Across the street, a black car was parked in a legal spot. A man inside the car looked up and met David's eyes through the windshield. He did not wave. He simply waited. David put his phone away and took a slow breath. He was not here by accident. He was not here as a regular customer. And he was not here to argue loudly in public. He was here to see the truth with his own eyes. Inside the restaurant, Mark was already calling out orders and acting like nothing had happened. He did not realize that his careless moment at the counter had been witnessed in a different way than he thought. Mark believed he had shown power. He had actually shown something else. And the next day, when the staff gathered for a meeting they did not expect, Mark's confidence would start to crack. Because David was not just a customer. David was the person who now had the final say over what Green Table Restaurant would become. The next morning, Green Table Restaurant opened as usual. The lights came on early, chairs were set straight, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. To most people, it felt like a normal day. But under the calm surface, something different was waiting. Mark arrived before the staff. He liked being first. It made him feel important. He walked through the dining area, checking tables, tapping his clipboard, and fixing small things that did not really matter. He believed control was shown through details. When the staff arrived, Mark stood near the counter and clapped his hands once. Listen up, he said. We have a short meeting before opening. The workers gathered. Nora stood near the register. Liam stood close to the kitchen door. Others formed a loose circle, quiet and unsure. Meetings with Mark usually meant blame. Mark cleared his throat. Yesterday was messy, he said. Slow service. Weak focus. That will not happen again. No one spoke. Mark continued. Also, today we may have a visitor. Someone from corporate. A small ripple of tension moved through the group. Corporate visits were rare and never announced so casually. Nora raised her hand slightly. Do we know why? She asked. Mark shot her a look. They never tell me why, he said. But they trust me to run this place. Just do your jobs. The staff nodded. The meeting ended. Everyone went to their stations. Outside, the black car from yesterday parked again across the street. David sat inside, calm and focused. He was dressed the same way as before. Simple, clean, quiet confidence. The man in the driver's seat spoke. You want me to come in with you? David shook his head. Not yet, he said. Let me go first. David stepped out of the car and walked toward the restaurant. As he pushed the door open, the familiar sound of plates and voices greeted him. Nora noticed him immediately. Her eyes widened slightly. She remembered the coins. She remembered the tray. She felt a knot in her chest. David met her eyes and gave a polite nod. Liam saw him too. His steps slowed for a moment. Something about David's calm presence made the room feel different. Mark, however, was busy near the kitchen. He did not notice David at first. David walked slowly, taking in the room again. The same details. The same small problems. Nothing had changed overnight. He stopped near the counter and waited. Nora stepped forward. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," David replied. "I would like to speak with the manager." Nora hesitated, then nodded. "I'll let him know." She turned and called out, "Mark, someone wants to see you." Mark walked over, annoyed. When he saw David, his face hardened. "You again," he said. "I thought I made myself clear." David stayed calm. "You did," he said. "I'm here for a meeting." Mark scoffed. "With who?" "With you," David replied. Mark laughed. "I don't schedule meetings with random people. If you're here to complain, fill out a form online." David reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. He placed it gently on the counter. "I believe this concerns you," David said. Mark glanced at it without touching it. "What is that?" "Ownership transfer confirmation," David said. Mark blinked. He frowned and picked up the paper. His eyes moved quickly across the page. His face changed. The noise in the room seemed to fade. "This is not funny," Mark said. "It's not a joke," David replied. "As of last week, I became the majority owner of Green Table Restaurant." Mark's mouth opened, then closed. "That's not possible," he said. "I would have known." David's voice stayed even. "You were informed by email. You were copied on the notice." Mark's hands trembled slightly. "That was a generic message," he said. "People send fake things all the time." David nodded once. "That's why I came in person yesterday," he said. "To see how the place was run." Mark's eyes darted around the room. Staff members were watching. Nora held her breath. Liam stood frozen. "You embarrassed me yesterday," Mark said quietly. "If this is some kind of trick, it won't end well." David leaned forward slightly. "Yesterday," he said, "you showed me how you treat people when you think they have no power." Mark swallowed. David straightened and looked around the room. "Everyone," he said calmly, "please continue your work. This conversation is between me and the manager." The staff hesitated, then slowly returned to their tasks, though their ears stayed alert. Mark lowered his voice. "If you are who you say you are," he said, "why didn't you say anything yesterday?" David looked at him steadily. "Because respect should not depend on titles," he said. "I wanted to see the truth." Mark's face tightened. "And what truth did you see?" David did not answer right away. He walked past Mark, toward the dining area, gesturing for Mark to follow. They stopped near the window table where David had sat before. "I saw a team that works hard," David said. "I saw workers afraid to speak. I saw customers treated differently. I saw coins dropped like trash." Mark clenched his jaw. "That was nothing," he said. "A misunderstanding." David turned to face him. "It was a choice," he said. "And choices show character." Mark tried to straighten his posture. "I keep this place running," he said. "Without me, it would fall apart." David nodded. "Leadership is not control," he said. "It is responsibility." At that moment, the door opened again. The man from the black car entered. He wore a neat suit and carried a tablet. "Good morning," the man said. "I'm here to support Mr. David." Mark's last bit of confidence cracked. The man continued, "We will be reviewing staff feedback, daily operations, and management behavior." Mark looked around. His authority felt thin now. David turned back to Mark. "I am not here to shame you," he said. "I am here to improve this place." Mark laughed nervously. "Improve by attacking me?" "By holding you accountable," David replied. David stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Yesterday, you dropped coins like they meant nothing. Today, I am asking you if you understand why that mattered." Mark looked at the floor. For the first time, he had no quick answer. "I worked hard to get here," Mark said finally. "I wasn't always like this." David listened. "Pressure can change people," he said. "But it does not excuse harm." David turned and addressed the room. "Green table will change," he said. "Respect will not be optional." Nora felt her chest loosen. Liam's shoulders relaxed. David looked back at Mark. "You will step down from daily management while we review operations," he said. "You will have a chance to learn and grow, if you choose." Mark stared at him. "And if I don't?" "Then someone else will lead," David said calmly. The room stayed quiet. Mark nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. David extended his hand. "Not as a test. As a reset." Mark hesitated, then shook it. The moment was simple, but heavy. David turned to the staff. "I will be meeting each of you this week," he said. "Your voices matter." As David walked toward the door again, this time with purpose, the room felt different. Outside, sunlight poured through the windows. Inside, something had shifted. And for the first time, Green Table Restaurant felt like it had a future built on more than fear. 1 week later, Green Table Restaurant felt different the moment the door opened. The lights were brighter. The floor was clean. The air felt lighter. It was not magic. It was effort. Small changes made with care. David stood outside for a moment before entering. He watched customers come and go. He watched workers smile more easily. He noticed how people spoke to each other. He did not rush inside. He believed observation mattered. When he finally walked in, Nora was at the counter. She looked more confident than before. Her shoulders were relaxed. When she saw David, she smiled without fear. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," David replied. Liam passed by carrying a tray. He nodded at David with quiet respect. Other workers did the same. No one whispered. No one looked nervous. They looked focused. David walked toward the back office. Mark was already there, sitting at the small table. His clipboard was gone. He wore a simple shirt, no watch, no sharp smile. He stood when David entered. "Good morning," Mark said. "Good morning," David replied. They sat across from each other. The door stayed open. David wanted transparency. "This week has been busy," Mark said. "Yes," David replied. "Change often is." Mark nodded. "I have been watching," he said. "Listening too." David waited. Silence was important. "I did not realize how much fear I was creating," Mark continued. "I thought pressure made people better." "And what do you think now?" David asked. "I think pressure without respect breaks people," Mark said. "I see that now." David nodded. "Seeing is the first step," he said. That week, David met with every worker. One by one. Not rushed. Not interrupted. Nora spoke about customers who were treated differently. She spoke about how small actions made her feel invisible. Liam spoke about being afraid to make mistakes. He spoke about wanting to grow but feeling blocked. Others spoke about long hours, missed breaks, and feeling unheard. David listened. He took notes. He asked questions. He did not defend. He did not explain. He listened. Mark was present for some of the meetings. He did not speak unless asked. When he did speak, his voice was quieter. At the end of the week, David called a staff meeting. Everyone gathered near the dining area. Chairs were arranged in a circle. No counter. No stage. David stood, not above them but among them. I want to thank you, he said, for your honesty, for your work, for staying when it was not easy. The room stayed quiet. People leaned in. This restaurant is not just a business, David continued. It is a place where people spend their time, their energy, their lives. He looked around the circle. Respect will be our base. Training will be our strength. Growth will be shared. He turned to Mark. Mark has chosen to stay and learn, he said. He will work alongside the team for now. Mark nodded. His face showed humility, not pride. David continued. Leadership positions will be earned through trust, not fear. A quiet wave of relief moved through the room. After the meeting, work continued. But it felt different. Mark worked a shift alongside Liam. He carried trays. He cleaned tables. He listened when Liam explained small things. Mark made mistakes. He apologized. Customers noticed changes too. One afternoon, an older woman dropped her wallet near the door. Mark picked it up and ran after her. He returned it with care. She thanked him with a smile that stayed. Another day, a customer complained loudly about a delay. Nora handled it calmly. Mark stood nearby, ready to support, not control. David watched all of it. One evening, David sat again at the window table. The same one from the first day. This time, Nora brought him water without being asked. On the house, she said. Thank you, David replied. A man at the next table leaned over. You run this place, right? He asked. David smiled slightly. I help guide it, he said. Well, the man said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. David nodded. We will. Outside, the black car was gone. David did not need it now. Later that night, Mark joined David at the table. I owe you an apology, Mark said. David looked at him. For what? For the coins, Mark said. For thinking power gave me value. David nodded. Apology accepted, he said. What matters more is what comes next. Mark took a breath. I want to be better, he said. Not just here. As a person. David stood. Then you already started, he said. They shook hands. Not as owner and worker. Not as winner and loser. As two people choosing growth. As the restaurant closed for the night, the lights dimmed softly. The last worker left with a smile. The door locked gently. Green Table Restaurant stood quiet, but strong. Not because of rules. Not because of fear. But because respect finally had a place at the table.